Hello, this is Gabriel Thibault with Breaking Expectations, a podcast about the joys of disability and all that it includes. Here you'll hear stories and roundtables of individuals who have gone through different journeys in their lives than the one that you think you'll take. But the twist of it is, if you're lucky enough, you'll take this journey too.
Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for a great conversation that we're going to have around a topic that faces persons with disabilities, told by the voices of persons with disabilities and in a context that centers their narratives and their lived experience. My name is Ingrid Palmer. I am a social activist, a public speaker, and a person with a disability myself. I'd like to start off by getting to know our panelists. And so we're going to have everyone introduce themselves one at a time. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about yourself, what your mobility device is, and just for fun, if your device has a name. So let's start off with Stévia.
Hi, everyone. I'm Stévia. I'm a newcomer to Canada, but working in social services and sometimes some personal support worker. I use form crutches right now. I know they do not have a name.
Thank you so much, Stévia. You never know. Why don't we, we'll turn to Kate. Kate, can we get to know a little bit about you and your mobility device?
Hi, my name is Kate. I'm a disability activist here in Toronto, Ontario. I am also an artist and I make art around disability. I use a walker and my walker does have a name. My walker's name is Pantalaimon. It's a character in a book.
Very nice, Pantalaimon.
Yeah.
Not so crazy after all.
No.
And, but certainly not least, Adam.
I'm Adam Cohoon. I'm an artist with a disability. I go by the handle ARC23 on the internet, and sometimes my wheelchair, I call it Wheels 970 in some cases, but on a day-to-day basis, no, it doesn't have a name.
Only when the mood or the situation suits. That's good. Well, we're going to talk today about our mobility devices and how they impact our lives. And so I'd like to start off with Adam. Adam, can you tell us about your mobility device and how it has impacted your life and what it has taught you?
My mobility device, the way I've used it over time has changed. Since about age 6, I've used my power wheelchair most of the time. Until age 6, my mobility device was mostly used outdoors, and for the first month that I had it, I could only drive around in circles. But that was because I was 3 years old. And the other thing to know is because my dad is a mechanic, and he is also a simple electronics technician. Most times they would not give a 3-year-old kid a power wheelchair, but my dad had made sure that it could only go to a certain speed, and he said to the people, he said, if a 3-year-old can break his wheelchair more than I can fix it, then Adam won't use one till he's older. But my dad figured that I should sort of use it sort of like how little kids use a tricycle or stuff. It would give me some freedom to play outside and
Mhm.
get the fresh air.
That's interesting. So you've had your mobility device from a very young age, and that's not the same for everyone. Stévia, when did you start um, needing your mobility device?
Well, I've needed it for quite some time, but just refused to use it up until last year. Um, I've always had chronic pain, and they help me to manage, take some of the pressure off of my back, and I've been I've been avoiding using them for a long time because I'm always that try to be independent person. I got this, but then as pain became a whole lot worse after I moved here because it's kind of colder. Um, well, not kind of colder; it's a lot colder. Um, it worsened the pain, and I moved to being unable sometimes to control my muscles when I'm walking. So I had to get them to stop falling.
Mhm.
Um, so I've really been using them since last year. Yeah.
So Adam brought up, you both brought up two really good points. Adam brought up that his mobility device um, brought him freedom, and you brought up that your mobility device helped to ease some of your pain. I wonder, Kate, if you had another aspect that you could bring up that possibly your mobility device helped you in your life.
Yeah, so I've been using a walker for 6 or 7 years now. Before that, I was using a cane, but I've had chronic illness and disability since I was very young. And my walker actually helps me feel like I want to go out in the world. I think for a long time I isolated myself because I was scared of falling and I was scared of going out in the world if I would like hurt my body. And now having a mobility device has really, I agree, like given me a lot of freedom. It also just like psychologically makes me so that I can participate in the world. Otherwise, I would just be at home sitting on the couch all the time, but or not even moving out of my bed. But yeah, having a walker makes me mobile. Otherwise, I wouldn't be able to move around.
I like what you said, Kate, about your mobility device um, helping you to participate in the world. Can you expand a bit about that and maybe what that has taught you about yourself and maybe mobility devices in general?
Yeah, I feel like a lot, like once I reframed that in my mind, um, I looked at my mobility devices like a really positive thing because it helps me like go out and about in the world. It helps me with groceries. It helps me just walk, right? But it also helps me like go have coffee with friends, and it helps me um, do all of the different things that I want to do in order to feel fulfilled in my life.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Adam, when you spoke about your mobility device and having it from the age of 3 and the freedom that it brought you, you have been with your mode of mobility device for a long time, and I imagine that you have learned a lot about yourself in this time. Can you tell us a bit about maybe one or two aspects of things that you have learned about yourself or from your mobility device?
Well, two the two things that I noticed is I consider myself a bit of a road warrior, and so, sometimes I use my mobility device a lot like some downtown Torontonians use their bike. In that sometimes in the good weather, I will actually use my mobility device to drive across downtown to events or other things rather than taking my wheelchair. The other thing I've learned about my device is that when we are talking about pronouns, one of the things that I get is there are people that will see the chair and won't see me and will actually refer to the chair as it. And so they'll say, oh, it's in the way, or it needs help, rather than Adam needs help, or he needs help, or they need help. They will refer to the chair as it.
And by the chair, since it's an extension of yourself, they're also referring to you as
Yes.
it. Stévia, do you have anything to add to that perspective? Have you experienced anything like that, or is there a point that you would like to bring up?
Well, I've had the experience of people seeing you crutches and not seeing you. So I get that, but I'm very sure that Adam's experience might be a little bit more that might happen a little bit more often. Because with crutches, I feel it feels more for me like people insisting on trying to help where no help is needed, rather than seeing crutches and excluding me completely. Yeah.
Right.
That's more my experience.
So with your mobility device, it's seen as separate from yourself in a way that's different than how Adam's mobility device is seen.
Yeah, it's
So
like
no one is
automatically.
referring to you as it because you're
Right.
using crutches. They definitely see that as separate. And
There's this automatic assumption that there are crutches, therefore help is needed. That's more it than separating, I guess, me from the crutches.
Yes, but always assuming that if you have your
Yeah.
mobility device, then you're in need of constant assistance from someone else.
Yes.
Okay. Kate, did you have anything that you'd like to contribute to this aspect of the discussion in terms of
Sure.
not being separated from your mobility device, whether that's a pro or a con?
Yeah, so I feel like mine is a little bit in between. Like I definitely get the same with Stevia, that people are constantly trying to help me, and sometimes actually like it's worse. They make it worse by trying to help, right? Like they'll try to open a door, but I have my own way of opening a door, and they throw me off balance even more. But I was just what Adam was saying. One thing that I'm really aware of is, for example, when I go to the movie theater or a play or something like that, people want to take my walker away so it's not in the way. But for me, my walker is like it feels like part of me, and so when they take it away, it feels like they're taking away part of how I get around. It's like if they take away my legs or something.
Mm-hmm.
And so like in a movie theater or a play or something, like I always try to have like someone with me so that like they can go get my walker for me in case, or I try to sit in a seat where they don't need to take away my walker. But yeah, it's really hard when people insist of like taking it away once I'm like sitting or something like that. But I also get people wanting to like extra help me with like bagging my groceries or opening a door or doing other things that I don't need help with.
Yeah, I think that we can all relate to that. With my use of a white cane, I definitely see my cane as an extension of myself and a part of my body. How do you, and I'll just throw this out to any one of you who want to answer, but I'd like to just hear more about what your mobility aid has brought to you and how it has enhanced your life and maybe your independence. If anybody wants to speak to any aspect like that.
I can tell another story. It's Kate here. So when I first started using a walker, I was going to physiotherapy, and they were trying to, my condition can't really be cured or anything like that, but they were trying to make it so that I wouldn't have to use a walker. But that just made me frustrated and made me not want to go back. So I actually found like having a walker is really liberating, because it means that I can like focus on the things that I want to focus on in my life, instead of focusing on the things like quote unquote fitting into society because I am not using a walker. And so having a walker is like actually really liberating. It's kind of made me identify with disability even more, even though I've had a disability my whole life. I've tried to hide it, and now having a walker, like I don't try to hide it, and it actually like it feels like it gives me some freedom, because I'm not trying to hide it and I don't have that shame anymore.
Right, it was kind of like a forced acceptance.
Yeah, exactly.
Stévia or Adam, do you have anything you'd like to add or weigh in?
The only thing that I would like is, the one thing was around the time I got my wheelchair, my dad sold his dune buggy, and and my mom sort of jokingly said, "Oh, he sold his dune buggy because it is to sort of, because I would never be able to ride around in it because I had my wheelchair." And when my brother was born, of course he likes and he's like, "Dad, why did you sell the dune buggy?" "Oh, well, because Adam was never gonna ride around in it with me, and it sort of gave us, because they had to pay for some of my wheelchair. The government paid for most of it, but my brother was always like, uh, um, oh, I wish we kept it. We kept the dune buggy." The other thing was, when I was a kid, my, some of the kids used to bother me and say to me, "Adam, you can't do sports and stuff." And I remember one time telling them that actually on the weekend that I was actually in a wheelchair racing league. Like, they went out to play hockey on Saturday or Sunday morning. I went and traveled around Ontario racing my wheelchair. And it was a bit of a lie, but the kids believed it. They're like, "Cool, Adam's like a junior NASCAR driver." And it also helped to explain why I had so many stickers on my wheelchair, which I used to have like a lot of stickers that my dad would just give me when he went to the gas station. And so I had all these, so my chair in some ways did look like a little NASCAR car.
That's a great story. That's a great story. Stévia, did you have anything you wanted to weigh in on about?
Well, on having mobility aids and feeling liberated. As I said, I refused to get them for a number of years, but after getting them, I realized how much easier getting around can really be. I'm usually one who tries to stay a bit fit, I guess, moving around as much as possible. But the pain of it makes it a little bit more difficult. So I found that over the years, even walking got a little slower and stuff. And now on my crutches, I feel like I'm walking with people and they're like, hey, hold up, wait.
If only you'd known.
So
I
I
see
get,
that so resonates.
so I get like this double where I can pick up as much ground as I can cover now and get a slight workout while doing it too. So I mean that has brought me some joy.
That's great. So you're keeping fit.
Yeah, ish.
Killing two birds with one stone. Yeah, that's great. I totally resonate with what you're saying. Knowing that I was recommended to use a white cane as a teenager, and I utterly refused. No way. And I didn't begin until my mid to late 30s when I had to, when my vision had deteriorated to the point where I had to. So I think many people can resonate with the fact of not wanting to use a a mobility aid, thinking that it's taking away something, and then realizing that, oh, it's actually giving back something, or in giving us more freedom than we thought, or enabling us in a way. And so when the greater society looks at persons with disabilities and sees a deficit, um, we know that it isn't a deficit. If there was something that you could say um, to the greater society about mobility aids and what they do, or I think either Kate or Adam had brought up, actually I think we all did, about people automatically assuming that we need assistance. What is something that you would want to let the greater public know around disability and the use of mobility aids? I'm throwing that out to anyone.
The first thing I want to say is, even though power wheelchairs have handles, we don't want to be pushed unless we need to be pushed. Sometimes pushing a power chair when it's moving, it can be very jarring for me, and sometimes it can even throw me off course and push me into other people. So that's the final thing I'd like to say. That is one of the hazards of using mobility aids out in public, is people want to try and push you when you don't necessarily need to be pushed.
Yeah, or just touching the mobility aid in general is like not a good thing, because I'm using it in a particular way, right? And so I know how to use it, and I don't need other people to pull it or push it or whatever. What was the question again, Ingrid?
It was really just about what you would want the greater public to know, because we spoke about earlier a bit about people making assumptions of need, or assumptions of I know for myself, sometimes assumptions about how we should be using our mobility aids. And so I just wanted to give room for you three to speak on anything that you kind of like the general public to know, maybe a pet peeve that you wanted.
I think one thing, after having my walker for so long and like coming and like actually loving that I have a walker, I think a lot of people assume that my life is so bad, or like poor me because I'm using a walker, but I actually feel the opposite. I feel proud to have a walker. I feel proud to be different. I feel like having a disability and having a mobility aid actually makes me like special. And I've learned a lot of things from having a disability and a mobility aid. I've learned like patience and creativity and so many different other things. So what I would like the general public to know is like, don't have pity on me. I actually love my life and love having a walker. I wouldn't wish it another way.
Thank you so much for saying, Kate. I so love that you said that, because that is so very true, that people assume that we are unhappy with our disability, or we're looking to be fixed or looking for a cure, and aren't just busy about or more concerned with the lack of access that we
Yeah.
have, and not trying to look to fix ourselves. We're trying to look to have the freedom to live our lives to the fullest that we can. Um, Stévia, can you tell us about maybe also about how you feel and living with a disability, and um, do you feel happy, your joy, are you just more along those lines? Because there is that just that one-sided perspective out there, is that we're all suffering and sad and just dreaming of being able-bodied, that's what we spend our time doing.
Well, I've lived with disabilities, so to speak, all my life. The mobility aids are newer, but the underlying conditions that cause me to need them are not. Um, I've had a number of years to be Stévia, and mobility aids don't change that. And I am happy with who I am, and in speaking about people and their assumptions, one thing that I've recognized is that ableism is a real thing here. Well, most people, as long as they can see that there's a disability, the automatic response is to want to be helpful. And I appreciate your desire to be helpful, but ask, because I may not need your help, and not to be rude, but your help might be more damaging than helpful. So, move out of the way and be considerate rather than assuming that I need your help.
And that's such a tricky thing that we're forced to navigate and have to, juggle for able-bodied people, is their assumption that their kindness or their willingness or their desire to do something is always welcome or always a good thing, or actually is always kind, because it's not. Sometimes it's insulting. And sometimes, like you said, it's debilitating. It's not helpful. It actually works the opposite way. And we are forced to not only have to handle our own emotions, but have to handle other people's emotions also, which can be frustrating. Does anybody want to maybe speak on that regard?
Yeah, I've had a lot of experiences of having to handle other people's uncomfortability. They see like a young person with a disability, and they all automatically assume, like, quote unquote, what's wrong with me? Because other than using a walker, like I like my body looks able-bodied, I guess. And so they always wonder what's wrong with me, what happened to me, all of these things. And this could be like a stranger that I am seeing down on the street, or like someone I'm sharing an elevator with. And so I'm trying to navigate dealing with their feeling uncomfortable, and I'm trying to change their mind, like there's nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
Like, it's your perception that there's something wrong if I'm using a mobility aid, but really, like, there's nothing wrong with me. Like, what are you actually trying to ask, right? Like, they're trying to ask some pretty invasive questions about my medical history.
Yeah.
Rather than, and it's just for their own like curiosity or nosiness or whatever, right? Rather than like them. So it's back to like what Stévia was saying, like people trying to be quote unquote helpful because they want to like know how to help you or whatever, but really they're just being nosy and trying to justify like their own bad behavior.
Mm-hmm. Adam, did you have anything to say on that aspect of sometimes unsolicited help, or unwanted pity that we sometimes get from.
Well, the only thing that can sometimes make me a little road ragey, but sometimes it is my fault too. But when the people like make comments about my reckless driving when I'm not being reckless, on my bad days, it can give me a little bit of sidewalk rage. But like, you know, I am sometimes, you know, gonna say, I think sometimes the problem is though that if you got a bumpier sidewalk and stuff, you sometimes it's sort of like a bumpier road. Sometimes you sometimes you do go slower, but sometimes you actually want to go faster. So you're not hitting every individual bump. So you're sort of going fast enough that you're not feeling every individual crack.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of these situations where it's sometimes then we I don't want to say it's hard to control, but sometimes I think people think that that we're just that when we're zipping down the street that we don't care, and you know we do care. We don't want to injure anybody, but it's like but don't assume that you guys can just make any action. Or the other thing I do really dislike is when when I am going down the street and there's somebody with an iPod or other music device in their ears and they're not hearing me say excuse me, so I quickly pass them and then I catch their eye and then they yell at me for zipping by. It's like, you know, sure, like lately with this social distancing, I'm a lot more careful when I do stuff like that. But if you're just slowly walking down the street, jamming to your tunes, reading a text, that's fine. But if I'm trying to get somewhere, I'm sorry. I can't always yell over your tunes, and there's not always another bystander that will signal to you to let you know that I want to get past.
Yeah. I used a power wheelchair for a few months when I had an accident one time, and I know that for me at least, being a new driver, I found driving a wheelchair really challenging. It might be because of the environment and how the road is bumpy and doorways aren't big enough and things like that. But I also just want to say, like, from my experience, like, it is hard, and like you have to like learn how to maneuver it, and it's like in my mind, having also driven a car in the past, it's like way harder than driving a car.
Mm-hmm. It was interesting listening to you both speak. That reminded me of times when I was accused of tripping people. Not that they weren't watching where they were going. Stevie, I wonder, I know you do use crutches that, you know, perhaps definitely don't stick out the way that, you know, I use my cane, but have you ever come across a situation where people either weren't watching where they're going and maybe tripped over your device, or maybe accused you of not being fair in your use?
Several times. See, I'm I'm 5'9" and have a bit of a gait. So my crutches go out ahead of me and then my body follows. And there are people who will see me coming and I am moving. As I said earlier, these things let me go a lot faster, right? I'm moving and there's a clear path ahead of me. So I'm trying to get where I'm going. And then somebody will step out into the way when I push the crutches forward to get forward and either hit them, which causes me to trip and then I am upset, or they trip and then I laugh because, well, you should have been paying attention. I mean, it sounds so bad, I guess, to laugh at it, but it feels like people sometimes are just so inconsiderate. Like you see me coming, you recognize that I'm using a mobility device, but you still think, okay, I can make it across a lot faster before
Yeah.
he gets there, you know? And then you're not expecting that I'm gonna be moving as quickly as I am. And then you're upset when you cross my path and then you trip. Um, and I have a lot of difficulty feeling sorry for you at that point because you could have caused me to fall, you know, which is the whole reason I'm on these crutches so that I don't fall. I'm old, I can't take a fall.
Exactly. I'd like to just change gears just a little bit as because we're coming up on time, and I just want to. I read something recently with someone with um, their wheelchair, and they saw their chair as just being really fashionable, and was just like really so in love with their chair. And I know some people who decorate their canes, their white canes, and so I was just wondering with you guys, do you see your mobility device as being fashionable, as being sleek in its design? And if so, I'd love to hear about it, or if you put anything on it to decorate it, or and if you don't, or if you have, if not, if you would have any suggestions for designers on how they could improve on the particular design of the mobility device you use.
I would love to talk about this.
All right, go ahead.
So my walker is bright red. And a few years ago when I had to change my glasses color, I changed my glasses to be bright red too. So now I'm always matching myself. And my two different mobility devices, my glasses, which are hardly considered a mobility device anymore, and my walker are always matching. And I always get compliments on my glasses. Oh, your glasses are red, they're so cool. But like I never get compliments on my walker. But I always try to bring it up when people say, "Oh, your glasses are red, they're so cool." I'm like, "Oh, I know. I got them to be red so that they can match my walker." And it feels like no matter what I wear and what outfits I put on, like I'm always fashionable because my walker and my glasses are always matching.
Nice. I love that.
So that's like a little way that I play around with mobility devices.
Yeah. Stevie or Adam?
I used to put more stickers and individualize my chair a bit more than I do now. I do sort of wish there were a little bit more design options in wheelchairs, but when I pick a chair, it's not because of the design. It's usually I like a chair that's got a better quality motor that can go for that can give me better long lasting endurance.
But if you could have all that and sleek, something, would you want like a really cool sleek design too?
Uh,
And also, or that's just like who cares?
I knowing me, I'd probably want like a more retro classic design. I like my Ingrid, if we ever get together, I'll let you feel my eyeglasses because I got the eyeglasses that are more shaped like the original eyeglasses. They actually were designing basically back in the 1890s and stuff,
Oh,
rather than, because I love those perfectly rounded shapes, and they actually work on me. They exaggerate the fact that I'm wearing glasses, but it actually works for me rather than having those glasses that people barely see. But I just love the retro artsy look of the thicker rims.
mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That sounds awesome. What about you, Stevia?
I've never even thought about it.
Never thought about dressing up those crutches? Nope.
No, never thought about it. So I think maybe if anything, I would change the color. I don't know, but that's probably it.
That's about it. Hey, good enough. Yeah. Yeah, I love that question. I know with me, I've gotten some compliments on my glasses. I don't pick them since I can't see them, but I'm always very thankful for my optometrist wife who always does that. And I get a lot of compliments on how fashionable my glasses look. So, yeah, that's a good one. I'd like to maybe now just turn to talking about how, if at all, your mobility device helped you in navigating social connections, and if it did with that, like sometimes for some people before they're connected up with their mobility device, they maybe were limited in their movement or limited in their ability to get out and socialize. And I'm just wondering if you found that your mobility device, besides being efficient in general, really helped to navigate um, the social aspect of your life.
I feel like my mobility device, it automatically people automatically can see I'm disabled, and so I find it easier to build disability community because we can visually see each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that. I also know that I've been able to connect a lot with my neighbors in my building because they all recognize me, whereas I live in a really tall building, and so I might not be recognized if I didn't have a mobility device. And because of that, I actually have like a better relationship with all my neighbors. And that's like really, really amazing. And also, like, when I'm queer and when I'm out in queer community, I lots of other disabled people, as a disabled person, like, I gravitate toward other disabled people because they have a similar experience to me. And so when I'm out in queer community, it's nice to like kind of quote unquote find my people, because I have that device.
Mm-hmm. I found it really interesting in this aspect how you brought up how your mobility device kind of makes you stand out, but in a good way. Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Either Adam or Stevia?
Um, I'm gonna let Stévia go because we've only got a minute left before our break.
Okay. Yeah, for me, it because it's less painful to move around. Um, I'm not really a very social person, but I found myself saying yes a lot more to going out and hanging out and stuff because I was able to move around with less pain. So yeah.
Well, I'm going to just take the last few seconds here then to say thank you to all three of you, Kate, Stevia, Adam, for sharing your perspectives and your stories on your mobility devices, on how they have enhanced your life, their effectiveness, and just the ways that they are part of you, and how the greater society can also learn to have more respect for our devices and us in general. Thank you so much for sharing your time with us today.
Thank you.
Ooh.
Thank you for listening to Breaking Expectations, a podcast about the joys of disability. This podcast was made possible with the support of the Centre for Independent Living in Toronto and the Ontario Trillium Fund. Please subscribe to our channel and visit our Facebook and Instagram pages. We'd love to hear from you, so feel free to leave a comment below. Remember that if you don't have a disability now, if you're lucky enough, you'll live long enough to get one. Goodbye till next time.